Breaking off all units. Fire at will. Squad 2, pick your targets. Too many, Captain. Watch your stabilizer, Gold 6. Anybody cover me. I got 2 vultures on my tail. You've got to hold them here. Watch your left. I can't shake them. I'm hit. I'm hit. Where's the reinforcements?
What's up, everybody? This is General Katarn, and I'm signing in with another video, something to take our mind off the controversy with Rotten Tomatoes and Captain Marvel and all of this negativity. Yes, some of us may be happy that Captain Marvel has been getting low audience scores, but the box office is what it is. It makes sense. It's a Marvel movie. So I don't want to talk about this because it's all over the internet, and I want it to be a beacon of positivity. Because to get triggered and get angry and into fights with people, it's very easy. So what did I want to say only about Captain Marvel? If you guys are worried about Rotten Tomatoes and the ratings and all of these things, don't, because a lot of movies start off strong in the box office and with critics and ratings and all that stuff, but eventually time will level them to their true numbers. The same thing happened with Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, when it started with a solid 9.6 IMDb score with a few votes in, and then when the votes, more votes came in, it dropped that number to, I think, below 6 or 7. I could be wrong, it could have gone up again, but that was the last time I checked, and that was like about a year ago. But basically my point is that scores drop, and basically they kind of level after a certain point in time. And if you feel that Rotten Tomatoes is going to silence you and censor you, you can always vote with your wallet. And that is something that no one can take away from you. So with that being said, let us go and talk about something positive. I build lightsabers, and I decided to also discuss these things to expand my knowledge and also share whatever I know, because I'm kind of a beginner. And I wanted to encourage beginners to build their own lightsabers. And if they don't feel encouraged enough, them coming to me for commissions is something very encouraging. Okay, let us skip the very, very long intro and let us get into today's topic. Today's topic will be a comparison of the Prizm 5.1 or 5.5 that has very, very little differences between the two versions of the Prizm Soundboard, and of course its other counterpart, the Nano Biscotte. The Nano version 0.4. Now, I've used this in my Graflex build, and I'm happy with it. I'm still very, very satisfied. It's a very good board. The sound effects are clean. The sensitivity is amazing. But what the Nano Biscotte doesn't have, the Prizm is the next step, and there are a lot of advantages that the Prizm has to a Nano Biscotte. Now, if you're a beginner and you want to learn, okay, what this is about, and you decided to land on my video amongst many out there, first of all, thank you. And if you consider, if you like, this video, you can consider subscribing, as I will do more of this kind of content in the future. So, the Nano Biscotte version 4. It's a very small board. This picture makes it look big, but trust me, it fits. It is so tiny, it's basically as big as your thumb, or maybe smaller. It's not that huge, and at first it can be scary when you hold it in your hands and you're like, this is tiny, how am I going to solder these pads? And these pads are, if you follow my mouse, this little thing that's moving on your top right of your screen, all the way down, it goes, it has this plus over here, which is the positive to the board, the negative to the board, the LED, the negative of the LED. The middle is always the flash on clash, which is now a new feature in the version 4, which means that the version 3 did not have the flash on clash feature. What the flash on clash feature is, basically when you clash your lightsaber, it gives off a flicker of a color of your choice. Usually it's white, but in some builds it has been yellow and maybe a greenish color, but usually it's a lighter color to emulate the clash of a lightsaber against another. So this feature was not on the board itself in the previous version of the Nano Biscotte. You had to order a separate, chip plate where it had the feature, and it would basically elongate your chassis, and it would be, an extra. It would take up extra space. And now it's on one board, and it's not that much of a problem. And that is optional. You don't have to go with flash on clash if you don't like to. And beneath the flash on clash, we have the activation switch. That's where the negative goes. And then you get the two pads over here that are the speaker ones. Now, they don't have a polarity, so you can solder any of the two wires that go to the speaker. So, Nano Biscotte is usually a beginner's board. They actually like this board because it has a lot of simple things. It is very cheap, very much cheaper as a board. And basically, it is something that, well, basically, at least not for me, it's something easy that you can solder. This L3 pad over here is, I think, the deep sleep pad. I'm not sure. I could be wrong. I most probably am wrong because I've forgotten about the Nano Biscotte. But this little pad here that you can see, if you can follow my mouse right now, the 3.3 volt is another place where people like to use their positives, maybe for accent LEDs as well. And it can actually act as an extra feedback for more power, if I remember correctly. So basically, sometimes people prefer to solder a positive on the board here, and sometimes they actually want to bring another positive wire to the 3.3 volt. But I went with a simple way and soldered everything onto the existing 7 pads here to make it easy for me and for those that were obviously watching my build. And if you haven't watched my build, I will put a link in the description down below. So let us check the Prizm 5.5. Okay, now as you can see, obviously the Prizm 5.5 is a lot bigger, but not as big as the one shown in the picture. It is also quite small. Don't be fooled. And to me, this looks to be a lot easier in terms of soldering because the pads are not cramped up one another. Now, I'm going to explain the pads in a second. So basically, what are these pads for? This is your L1, 2, and 3 for your 3 negatives respectively. Sorry about that. Your 3 negatives respectively for your LEDs. And then you have your positive to the board, which is on the upper left, and underneath it is the negative to the board. Underneath those 2 pads are the speaker pads, which of course again do not have polarity. And on the these 3 ones are much closer together are the where the switch wires go. Now you have here, I'm going to start from right to left, as I explained in my previous video. The GND coding here means ground, and obviously your negative goes here for the activation and the auxiliary combined. So basically you're going to have to solder both negatives onto this pad, and then you have the auxiliary, which is the middle pad. That's where your positive for your auxiliary switch goes, and your activation positive respectively. Now, what these 4 blinkies here are the accent LEDs for your illuminated switches. Now, I've shown you guys on my previous video what the illuminated switches look like, and it's something that not a lot of people prefer, but it's good to have that option because sometimes people like the extra pimped out effect. But that's a matter of personal taste. I won't go with that because you have to get some resistors, and those resistors have a polarity, and you have to pay extra attention. And for a rookie like myself, it can be it can get very easy to get confused. So these also have a ground, and the LS, I keep forgetting what the LS is because basically I haven't really studied this part of the board because I'm not going to be going with it. So basically I'm trying to keep it simple with the Prizm soundboard. Now the differences between the Prizm soundboard and of course a Nano Biscotte, apart from the pricing, which the Prizm is obviously more expensive, are the functions. The Nano Biscotte is more simple in terms of functions because it only has a flash on clash. The sensitivity is great on both boards, don't get me wrong, but the main reason why you have to pay a little extra for the Prizm is because it has effects and properties much closer to the lightsabers that we see in the movie. And as a fan, that's what I want specifically for the build that I'm making right now. It's a personal project, a lightsaber design that I've been working on for years, and I want my lightsaber to come as close to life as possible. So what are these effects? One of those effects are the blade lock effects. Basically, the blade lock effects are a combination of flash on clash, but that clash is basically has a longer lasting effect because, of course, it's blade on blade when they basically lock, just like, you know, when you see Anakin and Obi-Wan locking blades frequently on their duel on Mustafar. So what happens is that your flash on clash pad basically triples as long as you hold the auxiliary switch down, and it flickers, and it has the same effect. So Flash on Clash is predominantly white. Yeah, I can hear some people getting triggered about that, but it's the white color dye. Let me be more specific. Okay, so then you can also go with amber or yellow, but you'll have to resistor that negative LED because ambers and yellows are a must when it comes to resistoring, and reds as well. But greens and blues, like I said previously, you can get away with those colors. So then you have your the white dye is going to go on the L3 pad, and I'm going to be going with the color sequence of green, green, and white. So as I was saying, then the other effect that the Prizm Soundboard has is, of course, blaster deflection. So basically, you just tap your auxiliary switch, and you can hear the blasters being deflected. You can hear the pew from the blaster, and you can hear the ding from the blaster. Now, obviously, my lightsaber is going to do much more of a better job of making those sound effects. So if I don't become a meme about this soon in the fandom collective, that would be great. So what does the Prizm 5.5 feature as well? Also, it features the force colors. Sorry, I got confused because I'm going to explain something different in a minute. It also features some force powers, basically, like force push or maybe force lightning. Some force powers that basically have a sound effect to them. I'm really not looking that forward to those sound effects, but oh well, okay. So another thing that you can do with this board that you cannot do with a Nano Biscotte version 4 is that when you basically solder all of your colors to your main LED here, which is your negative to the pad, whatever color that you have is what you're going to get on your board. So basically the Prizm 5.1 and 5.5 eventually can do color mixing. Now, what is color mixing? Basically, you can get some LEDs with the 3 diodes being in the sequence red, green, blue, or RGB as we know it. Now, some people that do maybe web designing or basically graphics or have anything to do with color know what RGB stands for definitely. So RGB should be soldered onto R, L1, G, L2, and B, L3. And that means that the soundboard can be programmed to mix colors according to their sound effect that they're going to be featured on. Now, just like the Nano Biscotte version 4 before it, the Prizm can also feature up to 3 different sound banks. Now, the sound banks, each bank respectively has a different sound effect that you can choose to configure. Now, the main difference, as I was saying before, is that you can choose how to mix those colors. Even with a green, green, white, you can choose maybe to have a lighter green. You can choose the intensity of your LED, and that is all programmable. Now, how you can program your board is in the manual of the Prizm 5.5, and that will also be in the description below. So that's one of the main things about the Prizm 5.5 and why I believe it is a great, significant upgrade to the Nano Biscotte version 4. That is why you're paying a little bit more, because you can be more flexible with your board here. And one of the cool things that you can do is that you can mix those colors while your blade is activated. All you do is you hold the activation and auxiliary switch, and there is a sequence where you hold one or the other first. I have to read the manual again to make 100% sure, and when I start the build, I will have read the manual over more times to be more sure about what I'm saying. But basically, you hold your activation, and then you also hit the auxiliary switch, or the other way around. I really don't remember right now. But basically, when you just hold the one down and tap the other, you can mix the colors, and it also comes with a sound effect, usually the force choke sound effect, and the colors mix while the lightsaber is active. So I'm actually going to be going with green, green, white, as I said, so that means my blade will kind of be, kind of down to earth, a very, conservative color instead of the RGB, because when you do the RGB mixing, there is a lot of things that you have to calculate. You have to be able to program your board correctly, and in the cases that you want to mix, like for example, a different shade a shade of any color. For example, like if you want to have a lime green or a cyan effect, you have to know how to mix your blues and your reds and your greens. And to do that correctly, you have to read the manual, of course, in order to successfully recreate the color that you want for your lightsaber. But I'm going to go with green, green, white, so that should be much easier than the red, green, and blue. So which one would I recommend out of the two? This is, again, a personal preference. Some people prefer the Prizm and some people prefer the Crystal Focus, but it's a more difficult, at least not for my tier at the time being, to solder because it features a lot more things. It's a lot more expensive. Like one of the features I know that it has is basically depending on how you hold your hilt. For example, if you look, how do I explain this? Basically, depending on the angle of your hilt, you get to choose a different sound effect. For example, if I'm holding my lightsaber upwards, like Qui-Gon Jinn in the Phantom Menace, for example, the lightsaber will ignite automatically and bank 1, for example. And when I hold it down, like Anakin Skywalker usually does, and ignites it on a horizontal position, parallel to the ground, it will ignite differently. And if I ignite it, like let's say in a backhanded position where the lightsaber faces the ground, the emitter faces the ground vertically, that means that it will go off in a different sound effect. But that is all configurable, and that is something that at the moment I do not know. But I guess I will also have to study the Crystal Focus because it is a very popular board, and a lot of people like this board. They prefer it, and when they wanted to make like the ultimate build, when they're actually going to put everything that they have, all of their budget into one saber, they actually want to get the best board in the market, which according to some people is a Crystal Focus 9 or 8. I don't remember which one is out. I think it's 9, definitely 9. So the thing is, I don't have a opinion on the Crystal Focus 9 because I haven't studied the Crystal Focus 9, and from what I've heard in the saber community, it is, especially for those that make lightsaber commissions, it is something that not a lot of people prefer. Now, if I have to make a commission for someone and he asks me to recommend a board, I would recommend a medium-sized budget tier of the Prizm because it features all of the lightsaber characteristics that the Nano Biscotte V4 doesn't feature, which is the blade lock effects and blaster deflects. Of course, the color changing when the lightsaber is active and force power sound effects. So those are 4 major effects that you're paying extra for your board, and it's an extra $50 to $60, and I believe that it's worth it because if you're going to make yourself a lightsaber prop, it's already an expensive hobby, but I've covered that many times in these videos, and it's a good thing to be reminded because these things are very sensitive. You should make sure that you're going to make it the correct way. You're supposed to make sure that your electronics are tightly assembled, and you know that nothing falls apart like my Graflex has so many times before, at least externally. So you have to be very careful with these things. So a selection between the Nano and the Prizm is, I believe, very crucial. It is what you're going to start with. The first 2 things that you know, at least the first 3 things that you know, is what hilt that you want, what blade color that you want, and the board that you want. But some people may want a lightsaber without a soundboard or without sound effects. But I say to them the same thing that Saberfont says as their motto: without sound, it's just a glow stick. But that is my personal opinion. Some people may say, hey, I just want the blade because I cannot afford a soundboard right now. It's very easy. You don't need a soundboard to solder the LEDs. You can do that straight to the battery. Yeah, but that's, again, a matter of preference. So you can also mute the soundboard, by the way, which is a great addition. So if you want no sound for some time, yeah, you can mute it and then you can reprogram it to activate the sound. So again, I'm going to recommend a soundboard in your installs if you decide to make a lightsaber or have one made for you. So I don't want to talk your ears off. Obviously, there's a lot more interesting things going on right now with Captain Marvel, and I'm pretty sure that this was a very good distraction. I did my best. I did my part. I hope that you find this at least interesting. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. I really want to expand more on this because right now I'm very limited with my inventory. I'm still waiting for my lightsaber hilt, and I'm dying to do an unboxing and showing off my awesome hilt. And I know it's awesome because it is custom and it's not a thing that you've seen before. And basically, when you're dealing with lightsabers, you cannot say that it's not awesome. You can say, hey, it's not, this hilt may not be of my taste, but when you always own a lightsaber, it's always something to talk about. Even my non-fan friends are impressed by a lightsaber prop. They're like, dude, I can't believe that these things exist, or you made this, or hey, you're crazy, or what are you spending your money on? But, well, that again is, up to everyone individually. I like to spend my money on lightsabers, at least the one that I'm making right now. I'm not going to make a whole collection, and I'm just going to collect a few or assemble a few that I feel that I want in my personal collection, and then we'll see. Who knows? Maybe I won't stop. Maybe I will. So these are the two boards. Take a look at them again. The Nano Biscotte version 4, the Prizm 5.1 or 5.5. The differences in this brown box that you see here in the Prizm 5.5, I know externally at least, has this brown box a little smaller, because there were complaints by some people that when they tried to assemble the chassis, this part was sticking out and they couldn't slide their chassis in their blade, in their hilts. So basically this has become a lot smaller and slimmer, so that there is no need of a Dremel to sand down this box, and maybe the risk of damaging the this module here. So that's that. These are the two soundboards that I wanted to do a comparison on. If you know something more that you want to expand on, please do comment. I do like interacting, and I'm still a learner. I could be doing this for 20 years. I'd still be considered a learner. You can always learn. There's never something that you can say I know with 100% certainty unless you're the manufacturer himself or herself. Yeah, that's a wrap. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's discussion. I hope I managed to distract you for a few minutes from all of this controversy. And I will be seeing you in the next video. Or actually, it's a Saturday today, at least for my time. That means that tomorrow, the exact same time, 4 p.m. EST, we will be discussing things on the Podrace after party. So I will be waiting to catch you guys there tomorrow. So thank you so much for subscribing. I see my subscription count rising steadily but slowly, and I do appreciate the time that most of you take to watch my content. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. General Katarn, out.